Good morning, everybody. Are we all well? It's very grey and dull and dreary here in Dorset this morning, but I'm hoping to bring you a little bit of sunshine with our Technique Tuesday. Now, these are the special November lockdown editions because I don't know where
Good morning,
you
everybody.
are in the world. Nobody needs to hear me coming back at them. I don't know where you are in the world, but the
Are we all well?
oh goodness me,
It's very grey.
the technology is against me this morning. What am I like? I was going to say, I'm hoping to bring you some sunshine because this is Technique Tuesday, and the November lockdown editions have been specifically designed for you to hopefully, if you're in the UK, stop you having a bit of isolation, to kind of keep you creative, to keep you moving. Now, if you are in the room this morning, I can see already lots and lots of comments coming in. Let's try and give you a shout out. Leanne, Pauline, who else have we got? Barbara, Debbie, Sue, good morning, Sue, Heather, Val, Sally Yu, Mary, Hilary, Tara, good morning, Tara. Sylvia, Denise, good morning, lovely. Roz, oh, Roz is in sunny Menorca. Could you send some sunshine our way, please, Roz? That would be awesome. Jill, good morning. Ali, good morning. Rosie is in France. What's the weather like in France? And Jean, Jean. Oh, hello, Jean. Jean and Terry, my lovely friends in Newark. It's very lovely to see you. And Jilly, Carolyn, Janet, and Thyra, Anna, Janet, Helen. Who else have we got? Diane, Pam, Joy. Oh my goodness, there's loads of you this morning. Susan, Chris. Chris is saying these Tuesdays come round quickly. They really do. They really, really do. Jeanette, Joe. Good morning, Joe. Oh gosh, you're coming in thick and fast. Pat. Coming in so fast. Yeah, my apologies if I pronounce your name wrong. Is that Silka from Australia? Good. Is it morning? Is it night? What time is it where you are? Andrea, Wendy, Rosemary, Lynn, Julie, Karine, and Rosie is saying it's sunny in France. You are all astonishingly welcome. Now, just in case you have, good morning, Eileen, just in case you have not encountered a Technique Tuesday before, every Tuesday I broadcast some sort of musing or material or technique or project, but the November lockdown editions, I promised I would bring you 4 tutorials from start to finish. We've done 2 already. We've done toadstools and we have done a fuchsia. And if you want to find those tutorials, if you've not come across them yet, then you need to pop over to my website, alisonseaboard-fineart.co.uk, and navigate down the menu to the Ali's blog part of it. And not only will you find those tutorials on there, but you will find the resources for them too. You will find a photograph and you will find a line drawing. Now, if you have been quick off the mark and have been over to my website this morning, then you will have seen that I have already put the resources up for this morning. The photograph is there, the line drawing is there, but there's always a but with me, isn't there? Don't draw your duck out, because we're going to do something very different today. Now, if you have, who have I missed saying good morning to? Lynn. Oh, is it miserable on the Isle of Arran? That's sad. Linda, Sharon is saying good to see you. It's good to see you too, my lovely. Sandy, Michael, Janet. It's 8 p.m. in Australia. Good evening, Australia. Joe, good morning you, and Gwenda too. So I was saying that there's always a but, isn't there, with these Technique Tuesdays. Over on the Artist Demo Days page, which I have curation of this week, and I will tell you more about that at the end of the demonstration, you may have seen that I've been asking for your questions, and somebody put a question up about, can you do pen and wash, so that's drawing with a pen, and then putting the colour in afterwards, without it being all pernickety? Now, not only do I love that word, but I love trying to avoid being pernickety as well. So we are not going to do line and wash or pen and wash this morning. We are going to do wash and pen. So we're going to throw all of our watercolours at it. And then we're going to put some pen at the end. Now, actually, what we're probably going to do is wash and pen and then a bit of wash again. But we're mixed media painters and anything goes. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't really care about the rules, do we? So should we get started? I'm going to take you to my overhead camera and I'm going to talk you through some of the bits and pieces that we're going to deal with today. Just a quick good morning. Who have I missed out? Good morning, Ginny. Sally W. Good morning, Jean. Good morning. And Melanie. Good morning, Melanie. Oh, is it sunny in Exmouth? Maybe it's coming this way. Christine, good morning. Jennifer, good morning. It's lovely to have you all here. Now, on this overhead shot, you can see I've got a whole selection of things going on. I've got a piece of tracing paper with a duck on it. I have got the duck photograph that I took and is a resource over on the website for you. I've got a black and white version of it, and I've got my piece of watercolour paper here all ready to go. Over on the right hand side, I've got a few pens that I might experiment with later, a pot of water, a palette, and just out of shot, I've got a couple of watercolours and some brushes and things. Now, ordinarily, what we would do is we would get our line drawing, we would transfer it onto our watercolour paper, and then we would, if we were doing pen and wash, we would probably get hold of a sketching pen, we would draw it in, and then we would wash our watercolour over the top of it. However, the problem with that as a technique, good morning, Mr. Templeman, what's up? The problem with doing that technique is the fact that you draw it out, then you kind of put some pen on it, and then you do it a little bit like paint by numbers. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, you kind of paint the beak in very neat and tidy, and you paint the head of the duck in very neat and tidy, and you make your way around it. And it's a very passable painting. But last week, if you took part in the fuchsia tutorial, you will know that I was trying to loosen you up a little bit and get you to slosh a bit more colour around on your piece of paper. So I kind of want to channel that and keep it going. So rather than drawing it out and then painting it in, we're going to put some paint on a piece of paper and then do our drawing on the top of it. Now, I realise if I say to you, oh, just throw some colour at a piece of paper, it'll all be fine, then I will also need to dish out brown paper bags via the website for you to breathe into when you hyperventilate because the colour is running everywhere. So I've come up with a cunning plan. So here I have got a piece of tracing paper with my line drawing on. I've taken a piece of tracing paper, I laid it over my line drawing, and I took a copy of it. Oh, too many bits of paper. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down with a little bit of masking tape over the top of my watercolour paper, like this. And I'm going to take a piece of trace down and slide it underneath. If you are using trace down, please don't forget that it needs to be dark side down, all right? Otherwise, you will just, all that will happen is that your transfer won't work and you'll just put it on the back of your tracing paper, which is extremely frustrating. So I've slipped that under there, and I have a purple pen here. Of course I have a purple pen. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few marks around my duck. I need to put my glasses on because I can't see what I'm doing. Tara is saying she's always a fan of a cunning flan. I love a cunning flan. Right, I'm going to put a few marks round here. Let me just lift that up because I want to vaguely know where my duck is going to be. Just vaguely. I don't need to know exactly, I just need to know the vague space that my duck is going to occupy. So if I put those marks in there, let's take the trace down away, then I can see very roughly where my duck is going to occupy without drawing it in. And this is going to be the kind of basis for where I put my colours. So I know I can put my background colours around here, But when it comes to duck itself, I can throw some colour at that piece of paper and have it vaguely in the right place. Lots of people laughing at a cunning flan. That's what it's going to be called now. Incidentally, if you are watching this on YouTube or a different platform, you won't have seen the comments coming in, and therefore you won't have seen the delicious and delightful Tara saying that she's a fan of a cunning flan. Lots of people also saying that they don't do the neat and tidy. Love it. So here's my duck. I can now, I'm very happy to kind of pull that tracing paper away. Now I'm going to need that again in a minute. So I'm going to put that carefully to one side. But what I'm going to do now is throw lots of colour at it, because then I don't have to worry too much about it. I can play about with my vignette and letting it run and doing all sorts of things on my piece of paper without the constraints of my drawing. If you're not sure what I'm talking about in terms of vignette and similar types of technique, go back over to the alisonseaboard-fineart.co.uk blog, and you'll be able to see the fuchsia tutorial from last week, which will explain it in greater detail. Now over on my palette, I am squeezing some of these colours out. So these are the SAA's own brand of watercolours. They are not very expensive, but they are certainly not cheap student quality either. They occupy a bit of a no man's land in between those two places, and I really like them. I think they're an incredibly affordable, good quality watercolour paint. And I'm squeezing some colours out. So I have got a bit of sap green here. I have a bit of cobalt blue. I have some translucent grey, and I have some warm sepia. Julie, good morning. Please don't apologise for being late. No one's ever late. You just got distracted by other things, that's all. So there's my colours. I'm not really going to do anything with those at the moment because they're going to go straight onto my piece of paper. I have an SAA imitation sable brush that looks rather grubby by the looks of it. We'll give it a good wash out before we start. And I have also some kitchen roll here, which I'm going to scrunch up to get rid of the pattern. Oh, I do love it when you all chat to each other on Facebook. It does make me chuckle. So I'm going to knock all of the pattern out of this bit of kitchen roll so that when I use it in a second, I don't get that pattern back on my paper. And I also have a spray bottle, which I know looks like the water in it is green. It's growing something in the bottom of it, and I really do need to clean it out. But I haven't had time. Never mind. Spray bottle. So actually, let's start with that. I am going to give my paper a really good spritz, mostly in a sort of rainbow shape around the top, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. A little bit more maybe around and about, and yes, it's starting to puddle, and yes, it's starting to run, but we don't worry about stuff like that, do we? Of course we don't. Rosie is saying, any reason for not putting your paints into the half pans first, Ali? Very good question, Rosie. Rosie is alluding to the fact that ordinarily I have my paints in little pans, which I squeeze my colour out into and then use it like that. Rosie, the only reason that I'm doing it this way is to kind of make it a universal standard for people out there who may not know about that style of using your paints. May have tubes, all of those kind of things. So I'm trying to kind of be the Goldilocks principle in that we'll have lots of people watching who do different things. So this is the way that I'm using it this way. Tara is saying, spritzing algae at your page just makes it a more authentic duck picture. You're not wrong, Tara. Good morning, Anne. So let's go in with this paint. I've got some sap green. I'm going to put some green down in the background of my duck. Not going to worry too much about it. In fact, I'm going to worry very little about it this morning, and I'm going to flick a load of colour at the surface and really enjoy the process of getting colour down without worrying about it. Now, what you probably noticed, I went straight into my cobalt blue. I didn't wash my brush out. I'm picking up colours, I'm splashing them on, I'm getting all sorts of things going this morning. Now I know vaguely where my duck is, but I'm trying not to be too pernickety about it. Suzanne, good morning. Please don't apologise, it's all fine. So let's put some of the darks in and we'll add some water to get them moving. Over there. What else do I want? A bit more green. Let's pop some green in with that translucent grey because I do like that combination of colours. And where do I want that? I think I probably want that here in the background. And we'll tap some on too. And if I could get this starting to run, that would be really cool. Because then that would kind of play into that kind of lovely loose quality which we started talking about last week with our fuchsia painting. Now, what I'm also going to try to do is I'm going to encourage it to run. So, picking it up, letting it run down the page, giving it a good tap. Good idea to try to make your working area as clean as possible. But can you then see, I've got some lovely dynamic marks going on. I've got my vignette, so I've got my soft edges. I've got a few splashes going on too. I'm going to add to those a bit more. Oh, they're going everywhere, over my computer screen and everything. Good job the dog's not in here this morning. He'd be getting covered too. Now, what are you saying whilst I'm doing this? Lots of people liking the splashing. You've got to love the splashing. It is, after all, a duck. So you might as well encourage it. Debbie is saying, I love how Ali makes a mess and will produce an amazing duck. Well, I make a mess and just produce an amazing mess. That's not true. You will produce an amazing duck. But I think, Geraldine, you are right. We all do need a little bit of freedom at the moment, don't we? We're constrained enough. We need the encouragement to do some mark making and throw the colour around. Good morning, Sandy. Janet saying, is the duck? Oh, is the duck hiding? Rosie has also said mucky duck painting. Do you know what? That's what I'm going to call it. Right. When you have popped enough colour on there and you're happy with the amount of water and where it's gone and where it's run to and all of those kind of things, then rag roll it. But don't, or try very hard not to, as soon as you've rag roll it, put your brush back into it, because you're going to take a lot of moisture off with this. And if you put a very wet brush back into it, you'll get those cauliflowers. Now, some artists use cauliflowers really beautifully. I sadly do not. I just don't. I can't make cauliflowers work. So if you can get those kind of back runs and cauliflowers to work, then I am very happy for you. I personally cannot make that happen. Right, we're passing the kitchen roll over the surface, so we're kind of mopping up the excess. It's drying back already, look. Don't worry so much about the colour, what it looks like when it goes on, because it will always dry 2 shades lighter. Now, I think it's the lovely Sharon Hurst who says 30% lighter. I sort of say 2 shades because that's vague enough that people don't say to me, you said 2 shades. But that's my kind of benchmark for it. Now, I need to give that a bit of a dry. So I'm going to reach down for my heat gun, which has decided this morning to wrap itself around my chair. And I'm going to give it a quick dry. So just excuse me for 30 seconds or so while I blast this. I need it to be astonishingly dry. Now, hopefully you can still hear me over the top, but you should see that it is already starting to be paler. So try not to panic when you splosh that colour on. It's all going to be fine. And I'm going to dry the back as well, just to make sure that the paper's nice and crisp. Okay, let's give it a go. Now, let's have a look at it. Because it's a cotton-based paper, I can reshape it whilst it's still damp. And it still is a little bit damp. I did throw a lot of water at it. So you will spend a lot more time making sure that your surface is absolutely dry. But I'm going to give it just another quick blast before we carry on to the next part. So I'm actually just concentrating my heat now where my duck was. And I better give the back a blast of heat as well, just to kind of flatten it out a little bit. Now, whilst we're doing this, there's some questions coming in. Debbie is saying, think I'm using the wrong paper. Mine would have curled over and touched its toes. Debbie, yes, sometimes the cellulose-based papers don't like having a lot of water thrown at them. If you would like to learn more about watercolour paper and the reasons that I choose the watercolour paper that I do, make yourself a coffee and pop over to my website and look at the resources page. And on that resources page, you will find, I think it's about a 30-minute video about why I choose the paper that I do. And so I hope that's useful to you. Jean is saying, good morning, Pippa. Jean is saying this isn't pen and wash, it's pen and splash. Oh, I'm patenting that. I'm absolutely patenting that. Right, not as dry as I would like it to be, but it's dry enough for the next bit. Now I can start drawing. Now we had our tracing paper, didn't we? So we can line our duck back up again. Now there's two ways you can do this. If you're happy to sacrifice your tracing, you can pop your tracing paper down, stick it down as I did before and use the trace down. But if you want something a bit more disposable, or you haven't got tracing paper, you can still do it with an ordinary copy. You can still do that. What I would recommend you do if you have an ordinary copy is I would just make a little mark down in each corner so that you know where to put it when you place it a second time. So let's line that up. Let's line that up and get that kind of vaguely where I put it. That'll do. Let's take that version off and stick the new version down. Gwenda is saying, read the blog about paper, very good. Thank you, Gwenda, that's very kind. Debbie is saying, thank you, Ali, I'll do that. I've been using De La Rowney Aquafine, but think it needs a different technique that I'm as yet unaware of. Debbie, what you could do is soak the back of your paper before you start. And the lovely Jane Betteridge, if you have ever done an SAA workshop with her, she uses that technique an awful lot. I think there was a question that I missed about the colour, and Tara is saying, I'm sure she said it's cobalt blue. It is cobalt blue that's in my palette, if that was the question. It's sap green, cobalt blue, translucent grey, and warm sepia, which I've not used yet. Right, let's get this trace down underneath our line drawing and go back in with our rollerball. Glasses back on, Ali. And now we can draw out the duck. Now, one of the things you may notice when you download any of the line drawings that I supply you with is that there's always lots of gaps left in my line drawing. This is because I employ something called the Morse code technique. I do that so that if my brush goes between the lines or over the lines or does something peculiar, then it doesn't look like a mistake. If you draw a very solid line backwards and forwards on your creation and your brush goes over the edge, it looks like you haven't been neat and tidy enough. Now, you know me and the will to not want to paint particularly neat and tidy. I then do the Morse code version of that thing, and it looks absolutely deliberate. As you can also see, I don't follow my line drawing particularly neatly. And nor should you. Do your own version of it. Because that's much more fun, and it will build up your confidence as well for your drawings in the future. Now I have a coloured version of my picture here in front of me. Now obviously you've got two ducks in the coloured version because I thought it might be fun for you to choose between the two, or you could do the two together. I quite like the fact that one was pointing that way and one was pointing that way. I've just chosen to do the male duck at the front to simplify the demonstration. But actually, I'm not using that photograph as reference. Up in front of me, I have my photograph on my screen and I've got it blown up, which is another thing I would recommend you do just because I think it's easier to see. Heather, the blue isn't in the materials list, Ali. Yeah, do you know what, Heather? I wrote that blog last night. And I haven't yet tweaked it this morning. I will absolutely add that to the list when I go and upload the video for you later. Now, let's make sure that duck is there. Yes, it is. And when you're confident that duck is there, I can peel that line drawing off. I can save that for later. Keep them in a folder. Don't chuck them away, keep them in a folder, and then when you're a bit stuck for inspiration next time, you can go, ooh, I fancy doing a duck. Right, let's take the trace down away, and there we have the duck over the top of our watercolour. So now rather than us necessarily worrying about our background being all neat and tidy, or you getting tide marks, or any of that kind of thing, it's all there. And now we can paint over the top of it. Now, for the pen part of today's muddy duck, splash and line, or whatever it is we've decided to call it now, I am going to use these two pens. They are two of my favourites, made by the same company. So they are the Unipin pen company, Mitsubishi pen company. And they are both water and fade proof. Now, what's the difference between them? Well, this one is a 0.4. And this one is a 0.5, but this one is black and this one is dark grey. Now, why is that important? It's important because line and wash and line, whatever it is we're doing, I struggle with only using one colour of pen on a picture, because if we have a look at the duck, and here is the duck, if I go around that duck with just a black pen, it's going to look a little bit out of sorts down at the bottom where it's paler. So a grey is going to be better. You might use a brown instead. You might even have the right dark green to do his head. It is entirely up to you. So I would recommend always that you actually don't just stick to one pen when you're doing your line work, that you use more than one. So Diane says, Cobalt Blue always looks so much lighter on the screen video. My SAA Cobalt Blue looks much darker than that. Actually, Diane, there isn't much of a shift between what I'm seeing live on my piece of paper and what I can see in the screen. It is a little bit paler. I suppose I had a little bit of green in there with it, but I've certainly put it into water, so it is a bit paler. So possibly my bit of advice is to take more water with it. Now what I do want to do is zoom in a little bit for you so you can see what it is that I'm about to do. And let's move duck down. Now I'm going to use both of these pens at the same time. So I've got the black ready and I've got the grey ready. Oh, glasses back on. Oh, goodness me, can't see anything anymore. Now with this black pen, I'm going to carry on with my Morse code drawing. I'm going to go back around. I can use the black round the duck's head because he's nice and dark there. But again, you'll see there's a lot of scribbling involved. It's not a continuous line. Mick, good morning, Mick. Off to dentist for filling or extraction. Oh, I had that last weekend. Oh, I'm so sorry. across my fingers for you that it's a filling and not an extraction. Pippa is asking, can you get Unipin pens in lots of colours? You can. You just have to be a bit mindful about the size of them, Pippa. As you are local to me, Pippa, we can talk more about that when we have a tutorial together soon. So I'm putting duck bill in. Mick, you're getting lots of sympathy as well. Isn't that lovely? Aren't people gorgeous here? Let's go to the eye and we'll get the outside of that in. And that kind of, I don't want to make him look too cross, but neither do I want to make him smile when he's most definitely not. And then we'll get this line in for under the chin and this amazing ruff that we have. Let's go down into here and we can switch to the grey. Now, just because you've done a few lines with your transfer does not mean you can't add to it. When you do your pen work, you can absolutely add to it if you want to. You can add more texture to it. We've kind of taken care of all of our very loose impressionistic part, haven't we? So you do get to do a bit more detail now. So we can put some texture on his chest. What else do I want to put in? Let's put a nice smooth line coming down here. He's got loads and loads of beautiful feathers on his back, which we're going to take care of in a little while. Those wing feathers that are a little bit longer and are folded in, but now I do need to get to the grey again because they're a little bit paler. Let's get some texture in. You can see we talked about mark making a little bit last week with the fuchsia tutorial, and you can see right here that I'm paying quite close attention to my mark making. I'm trying to describe those feather shapes with my pen so that when I come to paint it in, I don't have to do quite so much work. Now, bottom of this duck is a little bit darker. Let's shift him across so I can do that in black. I just need to expose a bit more of my photo. And he's got this amazing curl across the back of him. Let's get that in. And then, I don't know if you can hear the weather outside. It's so loud today. It is blowing a hoolie here in Dorset. We could do with a bit of sunshine, couldn't we? Right, let's get that in. Let's get the base of him in. And there's a, we still need to put his leg in, don't we? Let's get that leg in. I realised as well that for some reason I've missed out the leg that's on the far side. So we can get that in too. Let's get that one in. Luckily his foot is covered by grass, but we need to put that back webbed foot in too. So let's get that in. There we go. And let's zoom back out for you, and you will be able to see duck inked in, ready for some more sploshy paint. So there he is, he's good to go. I might need to use my pens again. It's only for the time being, that's where I'm going to stick. Now I can paint him in, and I'm going to try to paint him in the same style that we painted the fuchsia in. So very loose, very wishy-washy, very kind of impressionistic. Now I'm still using my size 10 imitation sable brush. I'm going to use the sap green in with a little bit of the translucent grey. And to that, I'm also going to add some of the cobalt blue, so it makes it a little bit richer. It's not exactly mallard colour, it's really not, but do you know what? It'll do. It's not going to look any less like a duck because my colour isn't absolutely correct. In fact, let's stick a bit of blue in there for good measure anyway. My apologies if you can hear a load of banging and crashing around outside. Some of you have probably noticed through my social media that we're doing a major rebuild here on the studio, and my husband is out there banging away at various bits and pieces to make a start on it. Now let's get that in. I tell you what I haven't got on the equipment list, and I haven't got to hand, is I haven't thought about a yellow for the bill. But we'll worry about that in a minute. So we've got that green in, and then we can start with the brown. I do love this warm sepia, that we can start to get that dotted in. So we can get that onto the chest. You can see that I'm using the brush in that kind of very dotted fashion, that moving backwards and forwards, dotting it around on my piece of paper, and I'm trying to work really quickly too. A lot of you messaged me to say that you were really struggling with the impressionistic style of work, and I did suggest to quite a few of you that actually you put a time limit on it, or you limit the number of brush strokes, all of that kind of thing. So moving on down the duck, definitely need a bit of that translucent grey in here, getting those kind of feather shapes. I'm trying to dart my brush backwards and forwards on the piece of paper with the lightest of touches, and I know that's very easy for me to say and not so easy to do, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the process, less about the result. You're always learning. All the Artist Demo Days team will tell you that you're learning as you go. You never settle for, oh yes, that's it, I've done the very best that I can do, I'm never painting again, because there will always be things that you want to change. So we'll get those kind of feathery shapes in. It's a little bit grayer down here. I'm trying to look in blocks of colour rather than individual feathers and shapes. So we've got a bit of shadow coming in under there. Now here, I know that he's green. I get that he's green, but I'm going to show you something else that you can do with that in a second. And I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to get that dark in. So over here I've got, this is a size 6 brush and my translucent grey, and we're going to get that kind of dark curl in and some of those kind of darker shapes in. I do love this translucent grey because it can be both dark and pale. Yes, Geraldine is saying, I'm learning not to grip my brush. I think that's a very interesting and very well made point, Geraldine, that actually if you clamp it in your hand or you clamp your hand to the surface, you're not going to be able to create those kind of nice loose wishy-washy marks. I also need to get a dark shadow in here at the bottom of his neck. I may have missed the boat in terms of how wet that is, but we'll soon see. Let's get that in. And I think he needs to have a little bit of shading around the face to kind of give it a bit of contour. So we'll get that in too. What else do we need? What else do we need? Probably a little bit more of the paler grey near the tail to define that. And even at this stage, I'm going to do some spattering because I don't want to miss out on those feather shapes. You can see over here it's running into damp paint, which is working really beautifully for me. And over here on the dry paper, you've got some harder marks. Anne is saying, not got translucent grey. What do you suggest as an alternative? You could go for Payne's grey. You could go for Jane's grey. You could go for a thinned out lamp black. You could try mixing your grey out of ultramarine and burnt umber. The choice is entirely yours. Now what I do need to do, and I know I forgot to put this on the list, is that I need some yellow. Okay, he's got orange feet. I realise he's got orange feet, but he has a yellow bill as well. So I'm going to be using quinacridone gold for that. So over here on my palette, let's move it round so that you can see it. I've got that little bit of quinacridone gold, and I can use it kind of thinned out for the bill. Let's get a little wash of that in. take a little bit of excess off on my kitchen roll, and if I use it kind of quite neat, then down here on the legs I can probably get away with that instead of the orange. So we'll get that down in there, and whilst we're at it, we'll get some of the dark green starting to make some kind of grass shapes in there too. So down here I've got my brush handle. I've put some little drops of paint down on the surface, and I'm using the brush handle to create those marks. I probably am going to put a little bit of spatter in there too, and that will cover, if you don't like doing legs and that kind of thing, it will probably cover a multitude of sins. If you look at Lowry paintings, Lowry used to hide all of his horse's legs behind walls and things, and if it's good enough for Lowry, it's good enough for us to hide our duck legs behind some grass too. Liz is asking, tip for easily seeing darks from lights and midtones on a coloured photo. Lay a piece of red perspex over the photo. Yes, absolutely, Liz. Or equally, you could print it out as a black and white version when you print your colour. Both of those are really useful. So we've got all of that in. Now, here's one of the best thing in the world for a mixed media painter that bases all of her techniques on watercolours. Some permanent white gouache. The permanent white covers better than the zinc white. And is, if you get it to a single cream consistency, then it will cover over the top of our background really beautifully. As an alternative to that, if you don't have white gouache, you could of course use a white pen instead. Here I've got some of my favourites, the Posca markers, which if you don't have the white gouache, you could use those instead. So over here on my palette with my size 6 brush, I'm going to mix that gouache up into that single cream, maybe double cream you would call it. It's very hard to say it's this exact consistency because we kind of know what it looks like when it's about right, but it's certainly covering the brush without having any kind of blobs, and certainly not running off the end either. So now I can go back into my painting with my white gouache, coming backwards and forwards, and I can cover over anything I don't like the look of. Now, duck has got a kind of white ruff in there. Karine is saying Tipex works. Yes, it absolutely does. It completely and utterly does. Now, down here, do you remember me saying about this kind of green patch? Well, we can get rid of that. That's all right. Let's get some gouache over the top of it. Sometimes you need more than one layer of gouache. Sometimes you have to do one layer, let that dry, and then get another one in. But that's okay. Just dry it with a hairdryer or go and make a cup of tea. All valid things to do. And then we'll get some white highlights in here on the back for feathers. Let's get that kind of white bottom in. Oh, it's running into my black. But actually I don't dislike that as a texture. And then we'll get a little bit more in on this wing. So again, I'm drawing it through. Now the one thing we've neglected is the eye. Some people like to get the eyes in really early to get the character, to capture the character of the animal. I quite like getting them in late because to me it starts to pull our portrait together. Now let me get Duck back into view. On his bill he has that nostril going in there, which we can get in. He's got the end of his bill, which is a little bit darker than the rest of it, so we can get that in. We can, if we want to, so I don't quite know. I've made him a little bit thin at the back, so we can, if we want to. This is why I was saying it's kind of wash, pen, wash, bit more pen. It's not exactly sticking to the traditional Panickety ink and wash, but if I use my pen, I can get that eye in. You can either decide to add the highlight with a little bit of gouache at the end, or you can leave a space, whichever you prefer. And if I zoom in for you, let's get right in, you should be able to see in glorious close-up how I have left that line behind. I'm also, whilst I've got that in close-up, going to add a little bit of dark shadow around the bill a little bit more. So we'll get that in. We could, now you see my faffing alarm is going right off at the moment. It's going, stop poking it around, Ali. Stop doing too much to it. This is, after all, impressionistic duck. So let's zoom out and let's have a look at him in his entirety. Let's get him all into shot so you can see exactly what I've done. And do you know what? For the purposes of today, I am going to leave that right there. That has done everything that I wanted to happen. I wanted it to be a very loose background. I wanted to get some detail in with the pen and use a little bit of white for the highlight. Good morning, Jeremy. Very lovely to have you here. Thank you for tuning in. It's very kind of you. So I've got that kind of freedom, that spontaneity, and trying to get away from being too pernickety when I am painting. If for some reason you have missed any part of this morning's demonstration, don't forget you can go back via my blog. I will give you all the information again at the end, but go to alisonseaboard-fineart.co.uk and navigate towards my blog posts, and you will see in about half an hour's time I will have uploaded this video and I will have edited all the other information that I have given you. Oh, goodness me, I'm all warm now. That warmed me right up doing that. I really hope you've been enjoying these lockdown editions of Technique Tuesday. Please, please, please don't forget to share your creations, the successes and the things that didn't work. You can share them on my Alison Seaboard page, but more importantly, over on Facebook, I have a Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard page. And if you go back through the timeline, you'll see loads of toadstools, loads of fuchsias, and hopefully by the end of today, an absolute plethora of duck paintings. What's a collective noun for ducks, do you think? A puddle of ducks, maybe? Now, I have a couple of things to share with you. Firstly, this is my curation week on the Artist Demo Days page. Don't know about Artist Demo Days? We are a collective of 6 artists. There is myself, Jeremy Ford, who's in the room right now, as is Denise Allen, Ali Hargreaves, Sharon Hurst and Matthew Palmer. We take control by turn of our Facebook page. It's my week this week. My demonstration is coming to you at 9 a.m. on Friday, this Friday, the 20th of November, where I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I possibly can that you will have left on the page. Very excited about that. And don't forget, Artist Demo Days have a big event coming up, and there'll be more information about that very, very soon. Now, the other big bit of news, if you are over on my website, is to go and have a look. This morning, I launched my 2021 tuition days. So that is some of the evening classes that I do, most of which are online, that you can join from wherever you are in the world. There are some in person too, but they all got launched this morning. They are over on the live tuition part of the website, and you'll see the 2021 dates, lots to choose from, and everything from January until June. I know that we have restrictions, but that is one of the reasons that I am continuing to deliver an awful lot of what I do via the Zoom platform. And it's been so lovely to see all of you, no matter where you are in the world. If you have any questions at all about any of that stuff, drop me an email, downendfarmstudio@gmail.com. I will be back for the last of the November Lockdown Technique Tuesdays. Next week we are doing Holly, and it's Holly with a difference. I'm really, really looking forward to that one. So please take lots of care no matter where you are in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and I will speak to you very soon.